Hello everyone, this is Ketish here. In this video, I'm going to go through the AQA Combined Science Biology Paper 2 Foundation Tier from 2025. This paper is 1 hour 15 minutes long and it has 6 questions. Now in this video, I will be going through questions 1 to 4. These questions are the foundation tier questions. So I will go through them in this video. Now question 5 and 6 are higher tier questions. So I will attach separate videos for these 2 questions at the end of this playlist. So let's have a look at question number 1. Question number 1 is on the topic of homeostasis and response. The concentration of glucose in the blood can be controlled. A person drinks a glucose solution. What happens to the person's blood glucose concentration soon after drinking the glucose solution? The blood glucose concentration increases. Insulin controls blood glucose concentration. Which organ produces insulin? That would be the pancreas. Organs affected by insulin are called target organs. Which 2 organs are target organs for insulin? That would be the liver, not the lung. Muscle, yes, not the ovary or the spinal cord. Complete the sentences. Choose the answers from the box. Insulin causes cells to take in glucose. The storage molecule made inside the cell is glycogen. Complete the sentence again. Choose the answers from the box. Insulin causes blood glucose concentration to decrease. Type 2 diabetes is caused when the blood cells no longer respond to insulin. Give 2 ways to reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes. Do not refer to insulin. So, well, insulin will not work if you take insulin for type 2 diabetes because your body is not responding to the insulin. So what do? Well, you'll have to reduce the amount of carbohydrates or sugar intake. So eat less carbohydrates, or you could say sugar, because carbohydrates breaks into glucose. Eat less fat. So that your body is actually using the sugar that is already available from the food, right? You could also say do more exercise or exercise more. Or lose body mass or weight. I would write just the first 2. Question number 2. Farmers can increase crop yield by controlling the conditions that plants grow in. Draw 1 line from each substance to how the substance increases crop yield. Fertilizers adds mineral ions to the soil. Herbicide is used to kill weeds. So kills weeds that compete with crops. That would be the last one. Figure 1 shows a food chain for a farmer's field: seeds, mice, and owls. What is the secondary consumer in the food chain? That would be the owls. The primary consumer is the mice. The seeds is called the producer. It's part of the producer. It's not a plant, but it's part of the producer. The mice is the primary, and the secondary consumer is the owls. Bees are insects that live in hives. The bees fly in and out of the hives. Figure 2 shows a crop growing in a field. The farmer has added beehives to increase the number of bees in the field. Increasing the number of bees and other insects increases crop yield. Which are two ways that increasing the number of insects in an area will increase crop yield? Insects can't change the soil pH. Insects eat leaves from the crop, that would actually decrease it. Insects eat pests on the crop, maybe that could happen. Insects pollinate the crop, definitely. Insects shelter in the crop, doesn't actually help the crop. Some farmers increase the size of hedgerows between fields where crops grow. So just one reason why. Now, there's a number of reasons. Let me write about 3 or 4. To increase biodiversity, right? As a habitat for beneficial insects. You could also say to reduce wind speed, or to reduce soil erosion. Both these 2 points are actually linked together, so I wouldn't actually write both of them if you ask for 2 reasons. You could also write as a habitat for predators of crop damaging organisms. For example, growing hedgerows might actually encourage owls to stay there, which might actually help to eat mice. Peat comes from peat bogs. Peat can be used to produce garden compost. Table 1 compares peat compost with a sample of soil. So you have peat compost, mineral iron concentration is low. Speed at which water drains through is very slow or slow. Soil, mineral iron concentration is high. Speed at which water drains through is actually fast. Young plants have short roots. Explain one advantage of growing young plants in peat compost instead of in soil. Now, young plants will actually have their own they don't really need a lot of mineral ions. But if they have short roots, they need water to grow. So by allowing the water to drain through slowly, it will give them enough time for it to absorb the water. So peat, or let's say they're already saying peat anyway, so you don't have to repeat it. One advantage of growing young plants in peat compost instead of soil: water takes time, or more time to drain through. How does this help? Which allows short roots more time to absorb water. You could also say that you don't really have to water the plants very often because there's going to be water there. You could also say it'll be an advantage because young plants cannot reach the water that are deep in the soil compost. Peat can also be burnt as fuel. Figure 3 shows part of the carbon cycle. So you have carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. A is actually going back from the living plants into the atmosphere. That's respiration. A is respiration. Carbon dioxide going into plants is photosynthesis. From living plants, once the plant die, they turn into peat. When they're burning, carbon dioxide is being released. Name process A and B. So as I said, A is going to be respiration. B is photosynthesis. Peat contains carbon compounds. Explain why burning peat contributes to climate change. Now, burning releases carbon dioxide. CO2 into the air. Right. The increased CO2 in air, I'm just repeating here, contributes or causes, let's say, not contributes to, let's say it's causes global warming. Decay is an important process in the carbon cycle. Which two types of organisms causes decay? That would be bacteria and fungi. Deforestation affects the carbon cycle. Give one use of the land after the land has been cleared for deforestation. That would be farming. That it includes cattle, biofuel, crops, or animals, any of them, but simply saying farming is fine. Question number 3 is on the topic of ecology again. Buttercups are small plants. A student investigated the distribution of buttercup plants at different distances from a tree. Now, this is to do with estimating plant population sizes. This is actually required practical using quadrats. Figure 4 shows a piece of equipment being used to sample two areas, 1 meter away from the tree and 10 meters away from the tree. Buttercup plants are shaded in gray. One small square, 1 meter away from the tree. That's definitely 1, 2, 3, 4, about nearly 4 to 4.5 boxes. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, nearly 7 boxes. Definitely there's more buttercups 10 meters away from the tree. What is the scientific name for the equipment shown? That would be a quadrat. Each small square on figure 4 represents a percentage of cover of 4%. The student counted every small square that was at least half covered by buttercup plants, 1 meter away from the tree. Buttercup plants have a percentage cover of 20%. Determine the percentage cover of buttercup plants at 10 meters away. So now, the student counted every small square that was at least half covered. So we counted 7 here because I've just counted which is more than half. I didn't count this part, and so I didn't count this box and neither these boxes. So there were 7 boxes. So if each of them was a percentage cover of 4%, the total percentage is 7 times 4, which is 28. Now they want it from 10 meters away. Now this 20% is to do with 1 meter away. So don't get confused. We don't have to use that value. So 28%. What is the independent variable in the investigation? That would be the distance from the tree. What is an advantage of calculating percentage cover instead of counting the number of buttercup plants in a area? Now, counting it, you could make mistakes because you have to be able to recognize the plants properly, and it takes more time. Percentage cover is affected by the number and size of individual plants. That could also be percentage cover is always the same for individual plants, not for any species. Percentage cover is larger than the number of individual plants. Actually, the first one, percentage cover is affected by the number and size of individual plants. The student investigated the percentage cover of buttercup plants around a different tree. So you have 1 meter and 10 meters, 12, 8, 4, 12, 4. It seems to reduce and then increase. 12, 24, 12, 8. So following the same pattern. Calculate the mean value for table Z. Mean value X in table 2. Now, which values would you actually use? Would you use all of them? So if I counted, right, 12 plus 8 plus 4 plus 12 plus 4. Here we are not going to discount this 12 because it can't be an anomaly when you're counting it. Number of values is 5. That gives me 40 over 5, which is 8. 8%. Give one conclusion about the effect of distance from the tree on the percentage cover of buttercup plants. Give one conclusion about the effect of distance from the tree. So if this was 8, as the distance increased, the percentage cover also increased. So the percentage cover, now they're asking for a conclusion, so we don't really have to write a pattern here. So the percentage cover was higher at 10 meters from the tree. So it's more like a statement, not comparing it. Give 2 other factors that might affect the percentage cover of buttercup plants around the tree. Do not refer to distance. That could be a whole lot of things. So let me write light intensity, temperature, moisture or water level, type of soil, pH of soil. What else? Minerals or ions, it can be. Oxygen level in soil. Wind, speed, time of the year, right? I think that's a whole lot enough, but you could also write number of pollinators, the competition from other plants, herbicides, size of the tree or the roots or the canopy. Table 2 shows the results of the investigation. Suggest 2 improvements to the investigation. Now, table 2, let's have a look at table 2 again. So maybe count the percentage cover in between 1 and 10 meters or every meter as well. That might actually help. Let's write that. Repeat at more distances. Between 0 meters and 10 meters. They've done it 5 times. So repeat more than 5 times at each distance. You could also say repeat for other trees, or you could say repeat in other direction from the same tree. Question number 4 is on the topic of inheritance, variation, and evolution. Paleosaurs are extinct animals that lived in the ocean. Figure 5 shows us what scientists think a living paleosaur may have looked like. Scientists think that the paleosaur had smooth skin. Suggest why the scientists cannot be certain what the skin of the paleosaur looked like. Well, the skin actually decays. It's a soft muscle tissue. So the skin or maybe might have been eaten as well. So you could also say no one's actually seen it, and or you could also say that the fossils are usually of the bones, not of the skin. Or you could even say there's not enough evidence. Explain how structure A in figure 5 helped the paleosaur survive in the ocean. What is structure A? Those look like fins on a turtle, right? So if you actually cut off the neck in this and actually add a small head, that will look more like a turtle. So explain how. The flipper rather than fins, isn't it? Or you could also say fins, flipper-like structure helps it to swim or used in swimming. That will give you the 2 marks. Paleosaurs may have moved rapidly upwards to hold their heads above the water surface to search for prey. What type of adaptation was the rapid upward movement? That would be behavioral movement or adaptation. Scientists use fossils to estimate what different types of paleosaur existed. So you have paleosaur, present day, millions of years ago, paleosaur B and C. When did paleosaur A first evolve? That would be, this is where it actually started, isn't it? So that would be 200 million years. Let me just double check that. Is it 200? No. Yeah, 200. Determine how many million years paleosaur existed for. B. So how many boxes do we have? We got 10 boxes. So between 0 and 50, that's 10 boxes. That's each box is 5. So that would be 10 times 5 is 50 million years. The exact year of extinction of all Paleosaur species can only be estimated, which are two reasons why all Paleosaurs will have formed fossils. No, not all Paleosaur fossils have been discovered. That is true. Paleosaur bones do not decay. I don't know. They do decay. Paleosaurs may have had many predators. Some Paleosaur fossils will have been destroyed. That is also true. What evidence from Figure 6 shows that Paleosaur C might have evolved from Paleosaur B? Let's have a look at it again. Now, they existed halfway between, or they came into being halfway while Paleosaur B was alive, but so was Paleosaur A. Paleosaur B and Paleosaur C did not exist at the same timeline. Not true. Paleosaur B existed before Paleosaur C. That is true. Evolution can be studied using evidence from fossils. Antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Suggest two reasons why it is easier to study evolution in bacteria than to study evolution using fossils. Now, studying bacteria is evolution can be studied using evidence from fossils or antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Now, bacteria have a short life cycle. So they can actually continuously divide every 20 minutes. And it's very hard to study DNA evidence from fossils. So bacteria, you can study the DNA of bacteria. And you can also say bacteria more easily available than fossils. Give one reason why doctors are concerned about antibiotic-resistant bacteria, mainly being people with infections. People with infections of antibiotic resistant antibiotic resistant bacteria cannot be treated with antibiotics. That brings us to the end of question number 4. Now, as I said, question number 5 is question number 1 in the higher tier paper. So I will attach them as separate videos to the end of this playlist. So question number 5 is on the topic of inheritance, variation, and evolution, and is out of 12 marks. And question number 6 is on homeostasis and response, and that should have the 6-mark question. There you go, which is out of 9 marks. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you find this useful. If you did, consider subscribing to the channel or check out my channel for videos from biology, chemistry, and physics for AQA, separate and combined science. both in the foundation and the higher tier papers. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.